Keep on beginning and failing. Each time you fail, start all over again, and you'll grow stronger until you've accomplished a purpose. Not the one you began with perhaps, but one you'll be glad to remember. Ladies and gentlemen, Anne Sullivan was a brilliant educator, and the quote was not about speech making. There was a little bit of too much of trial and error in there, so surely both you and the audience would remember that speech. The idea is to ask yourself, what is the purpose of my speech? Many of you may have heard that you can split speech purposes into a general purpose and a specific purpose. Well, what do I mean by general purpose? Well, there are 5 basic general purposes. The entertaining speech. This is a speech you give at a special occasion, such as a wedding, a family gathering, or as an after-dinner speech. The purpose of the speech is to give the audience a good time. Then there's the informational speech. This is a speech you give when you have to give your monthly report to your team or your boss or some other audience. This speech includes facts and sometimes recommendations. Then there's the inspirational speech. This is a speech you give to bring the audience into a special mood and make them feel good. My boss recently gave such a speech to inspire our team to create a new company in the smart industry. Then there's a motivational speech. This is a speech you give when you have to motivate the audience to move or to continue going. If you've worked in sales, you know that this type of speech will often be used to kick off a sales campaign or to keep the salespeople going when the things get tough. Then there's a persuasive speech. This is a speech you give when you want your daughter to clean up her room, or when you want to ask your boss for a raise. The purpose is to influence and convince the audience to take specific action. Try to listen closely to the next speeches and presentations you will hear, and determine what the general purpose of that speech is. Now, each speech also has a specific purpose, and here it's best to have just one specific goal that you want to achieve with your speech. For example, I want to congratulate my grandma on her birthday by mentioning how much I appreciate her. I recommend writing down the general and specific purpose before you start writing down your speech. Always begin with a purpose in mind, considering the audience, of course. And that leads me to come back to a topic we've touched upon in an earlier video and talk a few moments about the audience and the importance of understanding the audience before you develop the speech. When you give a speech or presentation, the audience might not be as familiar with the topic as you are. Thus, things that are obvious to you might not be obvious to the audience. This knowledge gap you can reduce by empathizing with your audience. And to do that, you usually need to know the audience a little bit better. So why don't you start with the demographics of the audience, the age, the gender, the nationality, political and religious affiliations, profession and economic status. You don't need to know everything, of course, but the more you know, the better. If you'll be speaking in front of a large audience, it's even more important because a large audience might also be more diverse. Of course, depending on the event. So far, I've talked about 5 general purposes: entertaining, informational, inspirational, motivational, and persuasive. I've spoken about the importance of one specific purpose and knowing your audience. So remember, Anne Sullivan's trial and error approach to accomplishing a purpose. Well, we should be smarter than that. Abraham Lincoln said it simply: nothing will divert me from my purpose.